Hey everyone, hope you're all doing well. Thank you so much for joining in at DevRelCon Tokyo. I am Aditya Oberai. I am currently a full-time computer science and engineering student here at Amity University in India. Along with that, I love working with tech communities and hackathon spaces, and I'm currently active as a Major League Hacking coach, a Twilio champion, which is something that a program that I've joined very recently. I'm also a Gold Microsoft Learn student ambassador and a member of the .NET Foundation. And in case you want to chat about .NET, Azure, communities, Twilio, and hackathons, I mean, though that's my jam. So you can always find me at Twitter on my handle there and reach out at any point of time. So the topic that I've picked for today is why DevRel needs more students to lead. And this is this is really a topic that comes up from my 1.5 to 2 years actively working with tech communities. I feel that as a student, there has been an impact that I have been able to make on my own peers, that my peers are able to make on their own communities and their colleges and beyond. And in fact, I feel that students in DevRel is still a topic that needs so much more conversation on, because while it is becoming more and more prevalent, we're seeing more and more students active in this space. There hasn't been enough formal conversation about it. So the agenda that I have for my session today is going to talk about what DevRel is. This is going to be a very brief little overview of what DevRel means to me, to us. I'm then going to talk about how students impact DevRel, why they are very well placed within this DevRel space. Third, I'm going to talk about how organizations have been supporting these ideas and what organizations can actually do for students. This is a part I will pick up from some of the programs I have been active in, what I have perceived from there. So it's going to be based fully on experience, what I've seen that organizations have done and how it is extremely beneficial. And I'm then going to go over and share a little more about how you as a student can get more involved in the DevRel space. So let's pick up the first topic I have for today, and that is what is DevRel? Now, DevRel, that is developer relations, is a domain that focuses on maintaining relationships and bonds with the folks building on an organization's technologies or products. So it's really this nice little amalgam of the two words, developer and relations. And the moment you look at this term, you know at that moment that it's going to be all about the developer. It's all about taking care of the developer, of the person who's using these amazing technologies that each organization is bringing out. So there are various facets to this entire space. When we talk about DevRel, I feel I've personally categorized this to about four different facets that I'm going to talk about. But beyond that, there's a lot among DevRel that is highly cross-functional, highly interoperable between these facets. So I'm going to hop in. I'm going to share about these different facets that I've seen in DevRel. The first one is developer advocacy and evangelism. Now, I believe this is a facet of DevRel that a lot of us have seen, because we do get in touch with developer advocates and developer evangelists from different organizations. And there is a slight distinction between these two roles here, but they do broadly fall within the same category. So as an advocate, you are the voice of the developer to the company. And as the evangelist, you're the spokesperson of the company to the developer. And both of these act as a bridge between the developer and the company. So they're the ones sitting there in the middle, and they're the ones who act as that voice for both these institutions. The next facet I have is the developer community. And that, of course, calls again to talk about community managers. So these are the folks here who are developing these inclusive, empathetic spaces where developers from all around can come together, can interact safely, can share, can learn, can collaborate. That's all about what community managers do. And it is such an amazing and highly underrated role at times. I have personally been very active in this space. I interned as to support the community at ProGit, which is a lovely Japanese ed tech startup. I did this last year, and it brought so much of exposure for me, because as community managers, you're interacting with the entire community at all points of time. So you get to learn so much from all the amazing members in, the community, the network, the audience, all of them. So amazing role. The third facet I have is developer education and developer educators. Now, developer educators are the ones who are often creating this content. They're hosting these meetups. They're educating about these technologies. They're ensuring that someone who wants to get started with these technologies is able to comfortably ease into these. And the educator is really one of the most important roles, because without the educator, the technology can actually become inaccessible to huge aspects of our developer ecosystem. So the educators are enablers in a lot of situations, to be honest. And beautiful, amazing role there as well. The fourth facet that I want to share here is the product developers and the product managers. These are the folks who are taking this feedback, who are taking these interactions and incorporating them into these amazing products. And they are the ones who bring out those updates. They're the ones who define the strategy for these products that our DevRel teams are actually trying to take forward. So these four facets are the primary facets that I feel are there in DevRel. Of course, beyond that, we have folks who are focused on the experiences, the developer experiences. We have folks who are focused on developer marketing, and these I feel were roles which somewhat fall around some of these broad categories I've mentioned. So uh, that again is to say that they're very, very valid aspects. They're totally very important, and without them as well, DevRel is incomplete. It's just that these are four major facets that I feel I wanted to talk about. And these are four facets that I have placed personally here as a puzzle, because I feel that without one, the rest three are somewhat incomplete. All four of these coming together complete this entire little DevRel puzzle here that we have. They make one complete unified ecosystem. So that is a bit about DevRel. Now, I want to talk about, since we've just talked about DevRel, now want to talk about how students impact DevRel. Why we need more students to to stay active in DevRel. Why students are great go-tos for DevRel initiatives. For that, I would like to first talk about this little academia industry bridge here that we have. And when I mention academia, what I'm referring to is the entire schools, colleges, universities ecosystem in a more traditional sense. I mean, traditional formal education as it has been. So as we've grown up, as we come up, we go through both of these ecosystems, right? We've got academia and we've got the industry, which is of course the professional space. Now, as we continue to go forward, as we continue to grow up, these are two spaces which are constantly getting closer and closer to each other. No more is academia fully distinct from the industry or vice versa, because just as much as having that exposure of the professional space is important to a student, so is the continuous learning habit, the research mindset important for the professional. So we do see academia and industry get closer and closer as time goes. And a lot of people don't realize is that even as they're distinct but getting closer, there is a bridge in the middle there. We do have a bridge there, and that amazing bridge is university and college students. The reason for university and college students to be this bridge between academia and the industry is because university and college students have their feet in both doors here. They stand at these doorways where they are mature adults who are just about ready to enter this entire world. They're beyond the bubble of high schools and middle schools and lower schools, of course. And at the same time, they're getting that exposure, but they are in a protected environment where they can experiment and learn. So that allows university and college students to be in a very, very special position where they can act as the bridge between your academia and industry. some of these points that I'm going to talk about why students are great for DevRel, I just briefly mentioned here. But once again, I want to talk about these in depth because um, for students, of course, in DevRel, a big reason for students to be here in DevRel is that they are so much more relatable for other students. One thing I've realized throughout my experiences is that as I interact with a professional versus when I interact with another student, chances are that I feel a little more comfortable with the other student because they are in my shoes at this point as well. They know what the problems I face. They have the same experiences right now. Whereas someone who is a professional, for example, might have gone through that a while back. So it's just that there is a larger relevance when another student comes up and shares with me, and that just makes another student a little more relatable for me. And I have realized that as a student who tries to impact, your strength enables so many others to seek out for the same as well. It enables them to work on themselves. It enables them to work on their own skills and their potential, because when you try to impact, you essentially say that they can do so as well. So having students in DevRel is very, very good and very important that way, because we are at a time where we have an absolutely large number of folks participating in engineering colleges, in STEM courses, as students essentially in any form, be it in a traditional sense, be it in boot camps, be it absolutely at home. But we do have students who students do comprise a very big aspect of the audience we're trying to impact, right? So that way, having students as leaders does make these opportunities so much more accessible for a lot of people. Along with that, students are exposed to the latest technologies. We're encouraged to experiment, we're encouraged to play around, we're getting that exposure to what new is coming out. And it's not that we're restricted to very specific curriculums or syllabus as it may have been in the bubbles of school, because within school there is a focus on certain formative development, right, that needs to happen. But now in universities and colleges, where we have that freedom to experiment, so that exposure to latest tech makes us to some extent qualified as well to talk about these, because since we're exposed, since we're experimenting, we do have that awareness that folks in the industry do too. Which brings me to the next very important point, and that is students stand at the doorway between academia and industry. As I mentioned, we have our foot in both sides. We get to learn in a protected environment, we get to experiment in a protected environment, and at the same time, we are also eligible for that industry exposure. Even if we look at our own university curriculums, as we look at our um, flow of academics, in fact, there is a component of industrial training, there is a component of industrial exposure. My university, in fact, mandates uh, an industry internship after my junior year concludes. So that is actually what I'm doing right now. And that is because even academia at this point recognizes that for students, it is necessary to have that exposure before they enter the industry in its entirety. So because we get that industry exposure, we do know what's happening in the real world. We're not just working in a bubble. We get to, of course, experiment with these technologies. We get to play around, and that puts us in a very special position. That does, because we have the freedom to experiment. We're highly encouraged to do that, and it's not a dream world. It is real. Along with that, students are actively focusing on upskilling as per current standards. As you know, as we work harder to enter this industry, we are focusing on modern skills because that is what is expected of us. We're not just working with legacy tools, although that is a component as well. We do get to experience some of that too, but at the same time, we don't lose focus of what is emerging, what is new. So since we have special encouragement for that as well, we're already gaining and consuming that knowledge, which is there with us to share with the rest of the world. Students do have more time for voluntary activities. The commitment of academics is of course there, but along with that it is also encouraged to participate in co-curricular activities, and that is the perfect spot where DevRel fits in, because we are anyway trying to make those efforts to help our peers, right? We were trying to do that on our own terms, on our own free time. So having that time makes a lot of difference as well. This is the most important point I have in my slide here, and that is students are adults who haven't lost their childlike tendencies. Now, I want to mention that by childlike, I do not mean to refer to childish behavior or immature behavior. By childlike, what I mean is there is some sense of an innocence. There is some sense of, that whole mindset where you are willingly going ahead to experiment and learn and grow and engage and interact. And those tendencies at times in the hustle and bustle of careers of life may diminish at times in the future. But because of the high sense of responsibility, right? But as students, we don't have some of those burdens. At the same time, we are adults who are maturing, where we're no more children who still need that sort of maturity to come in, right? Where we are at a point where we are developing that maturity. So that places us again in a very, very special position, because we as universities and college students, we're at a position where we can bring the best of both of these worlds together. And that's why students are great for DevRel. And it's not just that. We see students active in so many spaces. Students are often leading tech clubs at universities, community meetups, hackathons, and conferences, of course. I mean, I'm here, I see my peers volunteering at conferences, sharing at conferences, even in the audience at conferences. Along with that, there has been a huge impact of this entire virtual transition, where beyond just these activities, we now also see students active as in the streaming space. We've got students actively creating content, writing content, blogging. We see students in podcasts, social media. That's been such a big space where students are so active, constantly sharing, constantly updating. Um, Along with that, we've got students who are actually providing peer-to-peer mentoring when professional mentors are not accessible. And there's so much more students are doing. And, you know, when we talk about DevRel, these are some skills, these are some activities that are inherently a part, right? Because along with that technical know-how, along with that ability, um, that empathy, the communication, the sense of inclusion is just as important. And students are developing that already through all of these activities. It's so often that we see student-led communities now, be them running on Discord or on Meetup or on a variety of different platforms. But students are doing these already. And a big aspect of this has been the sort of support provided by the industry, which is something that I'm going to get into just now. So even as I talk about how organizations are supporting DevRel initiatives, I'll just mention a bit about how organizations tend to interact with students and how that leads on to the industry supporting students. So for organizations to interact with students, we do have various channels that have been existing for a very long time, be those technical conferences, be them competitions and hackathons. Recruitment challenges are a great place where organizations are interacting with students. Social media, of course, fantastic. It's brought the world so much closer as well. And technical content, again, a great space. We've got streams, we've got written content where students are always interacting. The sixth point that I have is ambassador and leadership programs, which is, I believe, in my personal opinion, the biggest aspect, the biggest space where organizations have been able to impact students. These are all the ways organizations have been interacting with students, and all of the activities that I have mentioned earlier are activities that organizations support very often through ambassador and leadership programs. I have personally been a part of a few, and we have some amazing exemplary student leadership programs running right now, like the Microsoft Learn Student Ambassadors. We have GitHub Campus Experts. Google Developer Student Clubs, we've got AWS Educate Student Ambassadors, the MLH coaches, and there are a lot of other programs as well. And all of these programs are making absolutely amazing impact because I believe that as we move into as you know we're moving into this transition where students are getting more active in developer relations. We have seen organizations realize these benefits as well, and there is a lot of support that organizations are providing beyond your general networking or just a general community. And this is support like career mentorship and guidance from professionals, from developer relations experts. Like just for example, in the Microsoft Learn Student Ambassadors, we're constantly connected with cloud advocates from Microsoft. We're able to interact with them. We're able to collaborate with them. And when we need guidance, we can reach out to them. Along with that, organizations are providing some exclusive access to company resources. Once again, I will talk about the student ambassadors because that is a program I've been extremely active in. We get access to Visual Studio Enterprise, we get access to Azure credits on a monthly basis. And these are resources that allow us to work on our own personal growth. And once we do that, that enables us to share and uplift so many more people, right? Organizations are supporting student leaders with these. We get sponsorship support in our activities as well. We see organizations often supporting student-led initiatives. GitHub has been such an amazing support that way, where campus experts get support in the form of swags, at times monetary as well. With student ambassadors in person situations, we used to get Subway food and beverage support with Subway. We still often get support for Azure credits through the Azure for Students offer. Along with that, organizations do provide endorsement on public platforms. An amazing example of that has been how Postman brought out these absolutely amazing little showcases in one of their articles for their student leaders with the Microsoft student ambassadors, some of the amazing graduating gold ambassadors, the ones who have been the most active and the most engaging, have had blogs brought out on Microsoft's technical community blog. So those are major endorsements for these folks as well. There are amazing upskilling and skill validation opportunities like support for certifications, courses, learning content that we're constantly getting. And this is a mandate in a lot of programs like the Microsoft Student Ambassadors, the AWS Educate Ambassadors. They both have components where ambassadors actually have to upskill on the technologies as well before they progress. And that actually enables so many more to learn about technologies. I personally got into the .NET space because of this situation, and now .NET is my favorite technology. I love working with .NET. I'm a member of the .NET Foundation, and it all happened because there was a component in the Microsoft Student Ambassadors where I had to learn on Microsoft Learn. Along with that, there is certification support. There are vouchers, and this again helps because these are professional certifications. These add on to the resumes. These help in career. So amazing support on that end as well is something that organizations are providing. Along with that, a lot of organizations also create recruitment opportunities or referrals at times for students. That, of course, is something that is based on the student leaders' activities and can happen to anyone. I know for a fact there have been times where I've gotten in touch with folks through these programs, due to which I have received referrals in a few places. The current internship I have today is because I interacted with a former student ambassador, someone who was in the program about 7, 8 years back. And I just volunteered with them and they brought me onto their organization. Now, while that is a little more of an indirect example, there are opportunities otherwise as well. These organizations, they are supportive when students want to join these organizations because these students are aware of these technologies, of these platforms, right? So, and they are upskilling in those directly. So these are different ways by which organizations are supporting student leaders actively at this point of time. So that is a bit about how organizations support. And I just want to get to my final aspect, and that is how students can get involved in DevRel, how they can begin their DevRel journeys. So for this, I have a little roadmap here. You're going to start by joining a community, beginning learning, communicating, interacting with mentors, interacting with your peers. That is always my first step towards getting started through tech communities and getting started in DevRel. It is by beginning to learn. Once you start learning, it's important to build on that, to convert just that learning into and have a tangible outcome like a product or a project, even if it's just for learning purposes and not to bring out to the world. But that is important because that reinforces what you've learned, that shows what that demonstrates your knowledge and experience. Once you know you're learning and building, the next step is to start sharing about what you learn and build. It could start as sharing your projects or just sharing some knowledge or discussing in meetups, to starting off with sessions, with streams, with written content. Now, once you've got into the learn, build, share cycle, and once you've got experience of these, that is the perfect point to apply to and join a student ambassador or leadership program. Because a lot of these programs that we see today, these are the skills what they expect. This is what they expect. And even if they're not putting a hard criteria, these are skills you need to go through these. So having those skills once and having those experiences makes you a prime candidate for some of these programs, which will then further benefit you when you want to lead a larger scale initiative, when you want to support more members of your community, more members beyond your communities as well. Because when you're an ambassador or a leader for some of these amazing programs, they are supporting you in ways at times you cannot imagine. And that includes opportunities to interact at an international level as well. So having that going for all of you, puts you in a prime position to be able to lead and learn, build, share, and lead for your community. And the next step is just to keep doing this again and again, because this is a cycle. It doesn't start at one point and end another. It's always a spiral. And sometimes it may seem like you're going in circles, but it's always going to be a spiral. So you're always moving upwards. And that is a very important component here, that last 6 point, and that is to keep doing this, because impact is made by that consistent effort. It's not a one-time thing. And as long as you keep doing it, you're going to keep growing as well. So just to conclude, the learn, build, share cycle never stops. Never compromise on your personal growth in this journey, and keep leading, impacting, and uplifting your community. It's going to be one of the most wholesome experiences you as a student can have. It is going to be highly impactful for the people around you. And if you're able to do that, you do not know the bounds of your own success and in your journey. So that is about it for me. That's I had to talk about why DevRel needs more students, why more students need to be in DevRel. And I had an absolutely lovely time sharing all of this with you. Thank you.